home after the Taliban released thousands of ISIS al-Qaeda prisoners yesterday, in addition to all the people who got out of Gitmo who are wandering around Afghanistan now. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters served in the U.S. Army intelligence units for more than 20 years and spent many years in the world's worst places of the world telling the Pentagon what to think about these things. Sir, nice to see you as always. Any reason to think that all of these terrorists that have been let out around Afghanistan, that amongst one of them isn't going to be the next Osama bin Laden?
Well, the Taliban, the one thing going in our favor is the Taliban don't want round two. They've got us out of there after 20 years of struggle. They want us to stay out. And also, the Taliban and al-Qaeda are not synonymous. In 2001, Osama bin Laden blindsided the Taliban who were hosting him. They didn't know 9/11 was coming. And so one can hope, warily, cautiously, that the Taliban will fixate and concentrate on building their version of Afghanistan. And again, the Taliban's interests have always been local. Al-Qaeda is global. ISIS wants to be global. So those are huge differences. Bin Laden wanted to hurt us here. The Taliban just wanted everybody to stay out of Afghanistan. Now, organizations metamorphosized. The Taliban may turn out to be uglier, more lethal, with even grander aspirations. But I suspect that you're going to see the Taliban lay relatively low for a while, and blessedly, there'll be a regional headache for the Russians, the Chinese, the Pakistanis, the Iranians, and others, because you don't. Putin's kidding himself if he thinks he's going to be buddy-buddy with the Taliban. Same for the Chinese.
Well, that's an interesting perspective, is that you go in and you make friends with these guys, and all of a sudden you can't have a good deal with bad people. Is that why, as we look at the pictures of the airport, and so people understand, you've got the airport in Kabul, and there's a ring of steel around it, 6,000 American troops there, and then there's an outer ring of the Taliban. And as I understand, the State Department's hope is they hope the Taliban outer ring is going to let all the Americans come in to the American inner ring so they can be airlifted out. Is your analysis of the Taliban saying that they're going to allow that to happen and not take American hostages so that we leave and leave them alone?
Well, we shall see. But we're using the word hope a lot tonight. And as General Stalin used to say, hope is not a method. The fact is that we are there now at the mercy of the Taliban. They've got us surrounded. They've got us outnumbered. We're better fighters, but at past a certain point, it really doesn't matter. So we are in this humiliating position of being at the mercy of the Taliban. If they want to let people through, they will. And they certainly will let Westerners through. They don't want that headache. Again, they want all the Westerners gone. The issue is what happens to the people that we employed. And by the way, a side note on that, Leland, just as not all soldiers are heroes, I certainly wasn't a hero. We throw that word around, hero. Not all the Afghans who served or took our money, took our pay, were heroes. The translators and the out in the field with our troops, those guys were brave and gutsy, and boy, they deserve our support. But the average janitor or cook who would happen to be employed by us while we're there is not going to be massacred by the Taliban necessarily. And I'm sensitive to this because we have a tendency to lump everybody together. And just as human beings come in a lot of flavors, and the people that worked for us in Afghanistan weren't all saints. Some, though, obviously do deserve everything we can do to get them out of there, but they're at the mercy of the Taliban.
Well, and you can imagine trying to sort through, as you point out rightly, the difference between the people who really risked life and limb for the Americans and fought alongside our troops in the hills of Afghanistan versus the guys who collected a paycheck at the Burger King on base are very different. This, in trying to sort through that at the airport right now, is utter chaos. Cheryl Atkinson tweeted this, perhaps talking about exactly why things are as bad as they are and as disorganized as they are. Afghan withdrawal is being brought to you by some of the same minds leading during time of Benghazi withdrawal and then the Benghazi attacks. Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, their titles now. Jen Psaki was at the State Department, now White House spokesperson. Bill Burns, Ron Klain, who's now White House Chief of Staff. Is that a fair criticism or critique?
Well, actually, not of Jen Psaki, because she was very junior at the State Department at that time, and she's really come a long way. She's a good spokesperson.
Fair.
It was interesting to see. It was interesting to see Jake Sullivan today stand up there and prove that you can be intelligent, you can be educated, you can be articulate, and you can be totally incapable of rising to the moment. But yeah, when it comes to Blinken and company, it is a fair criticism. But Leland, there's plenty of blame to go around. And it was interesting yesterday when President Biden stood up and said, rightly, the buck stops with me, and then proceeded to blame Trump. Now, there is blame on Trump's side, too. He screwed it up. What worries me is that we have not had an effective foreign policy president for 3 decades. Bill Clinton was a mess in foreign policy. George Bush, because he listened to the wrong people at the right time for too long, wrong time for too long, he made a mess of foreign policy. Obama, hey, Biden was vice president. He should have learned by seeing what happened when Obama precipitously pulled our combat troops out of Iraq. You had the rise of ISIS. You had the slaughter and the mass murder of tens of thousands of people. One would think that Biden would have been somewhat more circumspect and would just would have done his homework. And so a problem we have right now is we have leaders that come to power on a strong domestic agenda, both parties, and get eaten alive by foreign policy. And in that department, Biden's a big disappointment. He needs to shake up his foreign policy team, and he frankly needs to pay attention to history and to reality.
Well, yeah, there's even a lot of Democrats. We had a former Obama era official who came on last night and said that Jake Sullivan needs to go just because of how much of a disaster this is. Your critique is, as usual, a little bit more pointed and thoughtful. I wanted to fact check something, though, that Jake Sullivan said, and this has been an argument that we keep hearing, which is that there was not a choice, either stay, and it was not an if or, there was more than 2 choices. How about that? Of either reinvade with a massive force or pull out, that there was this status quo option of leaving 2,500 to 5,000 Americans, continue to provide the Afghan military with close air support and medevac and the like, and that would have prevented the Taliban takeover. Biden should have reneged on Trump's deal and then just moved on with the status quo. Give us a fact check on that. Was that third way possible?
Leland, I have heard Kremlin spokespersons who were more honest than Jake Sullivan was. No, it was not a strict black or white choice. There are many options. And one thing our military does very, very well is planning for various contingencies. And clearly, they were not tasked or even permitted to plan for the worst case scenarios. And that's happened before. That happened when we went to Baghdad. The military was prohibited from doing the planning it normally does and does very well. And you see the result. And clearly, to me, it seems very clear. And Leland, you know Washington very well. The way you're supposed to make a decision is you gather the facts and draw a conclusion based on the facts. In Washington, the way it really works is people start with their conclusion, then gather the data to support their conclusion. And to me, it just appears that Biden just had decided, Biden, Blinken, and Sullivan and company had decided we're going to leave right away, and we're going to leave completely. And they didn't want to hear any counter arguments. And I guarantee you, there were people in the intel community, the IC, and in the Pentagon who would have said, wait a minute, this is much, much tougher than you think. And now we're seeing the human cost of what turned out to be absolute incompetence. Leland, the problem isn't with Biden. It's not what Biden did. You can make a good argument for leaving Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's how he did it.
It's not incompetence with which he did it.
Yeah, it's what my grandmother used to say. It's not necessarily what you say, but how you say it, not what you do, how you do it. Ralph, always good to see you. I told our producers to give us extra time, and then I took even more because it was such a good conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, great talking to you, Leland. Always enjoy it.
Indeed. The Biden administration long held out hope that international aid and the threat of cutting it off might keep the Taliban in line. But sadly, that too now appears to be a miscalculation, as the Taliban stands to take in billions upon billions of dollars from, wait for it, the illegal drug trade that they are involved in. Here is the headline tear from the Washington Post. Now comes the Taliban narco state.